Okay, let's dive right in. We're about to unpack a really powerful and maybe even a little unsettling idea that completely changes how we think about borders, power, and, who's in charge in our hyper-connected world. Get ready for this thing called cognitive Westphalia.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want you to just chew on this question for a second. What if the most important frontier for any country to defend isn't a line on a map, but something way more personal, something totally invisible? Just keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this.
All right, so to really get where we're going, we've got to take a quick look back at where we came from. For hundreds of years, our whole idea of what a nation is was pretty simple. It was all about what you could literally draw on a map.
See, power was super straightforward. A government's authority, its laws, its influence, it just stopped, dead at its physical borders. If you were inside those lines, you played by their rules. If you were outside, you didn't. It was all about controlling physical land. Simple as that.
And this right here, this captures the massive, game-changing shift we're all living through right now. The very idea of a border is morphing from a physical line in the dirt to a digital firewall. And the territory everyone's fighting over, it's not just geographic land anymore, it's the mental space inside our own heads.
So how in the world did this happen? Well, it's the story of what you could call an invisible invasion. The way these huge global digital platforms started to completely ignore those old, dusty maps.
I mean, just think about your own phone. Platforms like TikTok, Facebook, they couldn't care less about national borders. Their algorithms create these gigantic global rivers of information, of culture, of ideas, and they flow completely seamlessly from one country to the next, reaching millions, even billions of people in a blink.
And look, this isn't just about memes and what your friends had for dinner. This new reality has created a deep, fundamental challenge to the old way of thinking. The stakes are much, much higher than you probably think.
And this brings us to the core, provocative idea of this entire explainer. Just let this quote sink in for a moment. If your population consumes another nation's algorithms, you are a colony. Whoa, that's a powerful statement, right? It's basically saying that control over what a country's people see and think is a new form of colonization.
Okay, so this is where the theory of cognitive Westphalia comes into play. You can think of it as a new rulebook, a new framework designed specifically to make sense of this wild new digital reality where the whole battlefield has shifted.
So what is it exactly? Well, to put it simply, cognitive Westphalia is the idea that for a country to be truly in charge of its own destiny today, it absolutely has to control the information, the stories, and the narratives that its own citizens are consuming.
Let's break down its core principles, because this is where it gets really mind-bending. The first big idea is a radical one. Mental space is territory. Yeah, you heard that right. The collective attention, the beliefs of a population, that's now seen as a domain, like a piece of land that can be influenced, occupied, or even conquered.
So if mental space is the new territory, how is it fought over? Well, the next principle explains that. In this view, foreign memes, and here we're talking about any piece of cultural info, from a viral TikTok to a political idea, they act like a kind of invasion force. They aren't violent, no, but they subtly reshape how an entire population sees the world, from the inside out.
Okay, so the crucial takeaway is this. The theory argues that real sovereignty now depends on controlling something called narrative epistemology. Now that sounds super academic and complicated, right? But it really boils down to something pretty simple. A state has to control how its people know what they know. It's about shaping the very foundation of their reality.
And all of this leads to a pretty startling conclusion. If the new territory is the mind, then the new border wall isn't made of bricks and mortar. It's made of code. A digital firewall becomes the modern-day version of a fortified border crossing, designed to filter the information that gets in and what stays out.
Now, all this might sound like some high-level, abstract geopolitical stuff, but the truth is it has profound, direct implications for every single one of us. At the end of the day, this is a battle for your mind.
So let's just do a quick recap of the whole journey, okay? We started with the old-school idea of sovereignty, all based on controlling physical land. Then, boom, digital platforms came along and made those borders almost meaningless. The theory of cognitive Westphalia gives us a new way to see this, arguing that the real power now is in controlling information. And that means the new front line in this global fight is for your personal attention and your belief.
So I'll leave you with this final challenging question. As you're scrolling through your feeds today, in this world of borderless algorithms and endless streams of information,
Who, or maybe what, is truly the sovereign of your thoughts?